Welcome to the Healing Grove podcast. I'm Dr. Kristin, an integrative holistic family physician, author of Life After Lyme, and host in this virtual space of learning, healing, and growing. I believe humans are like trees, and our physical limb is only one of many. Health on all limbs of the tree, emotional, conceptual, social, spiritual, is absolutely required for the whole tree that is you to be vibrantly well. I created the Healing Grove podcast as a place to showcase some of the world's best integrative and holistic medicine, to expose you to transformative tools and mindset shifts for all limbs of your tree. I hope you enjoy our conversation in the Healing Grove today as much as I enjoyed having it. Welcome everybody, and welcome Jeannine Goode-Allen. I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here, Kristin.
All right, so just before we start, I want everyone to be reminded that Jeannine is going to actually lead us through some movement. So if you're not already wearing comfortable clothing, it might be a good time to pause and go get some on. She's also invited us to bring some pencil and paper, and knowing Jeannine, probably also watercolors. So if you have anything you'd like to draw with, just go ahead and get that collected now. But before we do anything else, I would like to introduce you to my friend Jeannine Goode-Allen. So this is Jeannine Goode-Allen, Doctor of Ministry. She was born in London, England, educated in Switzerland, and she's fluent in English, Spanish, German, and French. She's a graduate of Dartmouth College, Columbia University, and Wisdom University. She's manager of Videditas Productions, LLC, and has a spiritual healing practice. Doctor of the Soul is its name. Dr. Goode-Allen is also the creator of a one-woman performance piece, Feathers on the Breath of God, which shows her journey to wholeness as it was inspired by the life and work of the 12th century mystic, Saint Hildegard of Bingen, who I'm sure we're going to hear more about today in her talk. Jeannine lives in Boulder, Colorado with her husband, Dr. David Sharp. Doctors Goode-Allen and Sharp are the parents of 4 children. So let us begin. There's so much for us to dig into. Before we start though, I want to just you to share with us a little bit about your journey and why you felt called to speak to people who are struggling with complex, chronic, mysterious, as you say, baffling illness.
Well, Kristin, I know that the struggles, the health challenges I've lived through have given me some amazing gifts. And, I think part of what I experienced is that there were things that, I addressed on the physical realm. I addressed on the emotional realm, and I addressed, in terms of my thought patterns in the mental realm. And still these things were not healing. And, some of them went on for, decades. And then the solutions came in the spiritual realm. And so for me, it really is about opening up the door to all of those possibilities and knowing that there's always a solution, no matter what, how long it takes. And I'm really about supporting people in doing that. And yes, at the center of my life's healing journey has been this amazing, I have a little statue of her, this amazing, brilliant, courageous, creative woman. I really think she's the most powerful woman that ever lived. And here she is, Saint Hildegard of Bingen. And I started exploring her life and work at a time in my life where I was absolutely devastated. I was heartbroken. I had lived with a religious community in Mexico. And I just found that there we were working with Otomi Indian. And I just found that their way of being was not helpful. In fact, it was quite destructive. And I had grown up in the Catholic Church and found lots of it, what I had been taught, unacceptable. And so I came and moved back to the United States from Mexico. I was in my mid-20s, and I was really livid. I heartbroken, but also really angry. And that's when I heard about Saint Hildegard. At that point, she was not officially a saint. She was still Hildegard of Bingen, although a lot of Germans, that's where she worked and lived, have always referred to her as Saint Hildegard. But I heard about her from an amazing theologian, Matthew Fox. And initially I was not happy about it. I'm like, I had just lived with nuns. No, thank you. I want to learn about them. But I started learning that she had lived to be 81 years old in the 12th century.
Wow. So just to put that in perspective, what does that look like? Like, what would that mean for someone today to live that long?
It's like you and me living to be 150 years old.
Oh, well, that's no big deal.
Yeah. And so I love to ask, my clients, so start imagining living to be 150. Just feel into that, but that was the hook. It's like, once I heard that, I was like, okay, I have to find out about this gal. And so as I began to learn about her, I just really was able to move through that anger and heartache and go, okay, there's another way. And, there were many, many moments in my life where I just didn't know how I was going to make it through. And one of them was that I had been born with a heart defect. It was the kind of thing where I would be going along in my life, like say, be on a ski lift or be in front of a class of my students. I was a classroom teacher in my 20s and 30s and 40s. And suddenly it would start and my heart would start racing. I mean, we're talking over 200 beats a minute. And I would not be able to stand. I would have to immediately lie down. And, for most of my life, it was like a massive hiccup, but it was not, something life-threatening, and I just kind of lived with it. But then it got so bad where I was having it for hours and hours. And I was actually in the midst of a divorce at that time. It was in my 40s, a marriage of 20 years, 2 children. And my life as I knew it was changing. And I really didn't know if I was going to make it, because this heart thing, it just stopped me. I really couldn't function. I couldn't work. I couldn't parent. And then I went, okay, I know Hildegard, I had sung her music at this point. I'd studied a lot. I'd been to Germany once to see where she had lived, but I had not touched her medicine. And I thought, well, what does Hildegard say about the heart? And sure enough, there's this little book called Hildegard's Medicine. And I found this book. It was by these 2 doctors in Germany. And I found this heart remedy. And it was, the key ingredient was parsley. And so, organic wine. I mean, the Germans love their wine. So, put your organic wine in the pot. You put this parsley in there. You put some honey. And you put a little red wine vinegar. And first of all, to cook this thing was just so incredibly wonderful because the smells. And then she said to take 2 tablespoons a day of this heart remedy. And that's what I started doing. And it almost felt like I started to have roots again. It was like growing into the ground, and I felt like I could make it. And at that time, in 1 week, 3 people from different parts of my life let me know that there was a surgery available that I should do. Yeah. Oh no, I'm not doing no surgery. I was not a big fan of surgery. I was like,
so that was the universe being like, are you sure you want to be drinking that parsley wine? Like, are you sure you don't want to go the traditional route? Yeah.
So it was a real time of wrestling and discerning. And I kept just imagining talking to St. Hildegard. It's like, okay, what do I do here? And the thing is, the 3 people that told me about the surgery were really solid people in my life. Mm-hmm. Very different. It was my aunt. It was one of my favorite professors. And yes, it was David, my soon-to-be husband, number 2. So, and what I got was Hildegard saying, go for it. And know that as you drink this remedy, all will be well. And it took an amazing amount of courage to head into this surgery. But do you know, I was the absolute record breaker for this surgeon. He said to me, I've never had someone in and out of the operating room that fast. And would you please give testimonials to, let people know that this surgery really can work. And it did. And I was literally not in the hospital a day.
Wow.
doctor went, I can't believe this. You know, it was an electrical procedure where they basically burned this one part of my heart tissue that was like this bugaboo. And so it turned into scar tissue and calmed the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And I haven't had anything of this nature since then. This was over a decade ago.
So I'm curious, did you end up giving a testimonial to the surgeon or to St. Hildegard?
Well, you know, St. Hildegard and I, we just speak to each other all the time, 24/7. And, you know, the surgeon, as surgeons, I think, are wont to do, they have great ideas and they get so caught up and be busy that he never actually called me for the testimonial. But it let me know that this remedy was key.
Yeah.
This remedy was part of me being such an incredible success story. And I thought, wow, okay. And then fast forward, and I know that I'm talking to Hildegard, and she's like, listen, singing is key. For you, it was for me, and I want you to develop as a singer. And I went, I can sing in the shower, but I can't do it, you know, in front of people. And I could do it in my classroom, you know, I would close the door and sing with my students. But I knew there was a longing deep, deep, deep in my soul to sing and to share my voice. Mm-hmm. And so I started getting lessons. And I would start to, you know, try and sing on a stage in front of people. And I would have like these life-threatening panic attacks. Mm. And it was awful. I just was like, you know, I mean, I even had one vocal teacher say to me, you should stop singing and go see a psychiatrist. And thankfully I had enough, you know, support from my 12th century friend. And she said, oh, forget about that lady, you know, well, let's go a different path. And she told me to sing her Kyrie, which is the shortest of her songs. And I started singing this Kyrie, and all of this anxiety would come up, but it would bubble away. It was like the spiritual remedy to let go of this anxiety and get absolutely total confidence and joy with singing in public. And so now, you know, I'm a recording artist and my music is available on Spotify. And, you know, I did this performance piece and there was not a stitch of anxiety. It was just such a delight.
Wow. Well, one of the things that I love about your story is just how much it represents what can happen when you partner with something larger than yourself, right? Whether that's God or St. Hildegard or your neighbor who also is sick or your mother or your, you know, there's all sorts of humans and non-humans available, your pets, right? And I call that a spiritual practice. Like when you are connecting to something outside of yourself that supports you and loves you unconditionally, ideally.
Yes.
It's pretty darn powerful.
And I know that this is probably the most important thing I teach my clients, and that is to find, you know, their Saint Hildegard. I mean, Saint Hildegard was my guide and is my guide. And I teach so much about how she has helped me and encourage people to use these practices. But then we can explore, yes, okay, so this is one example. Now, how about you? Mm-hmm. You know, is it the robin in your backyard that's calling to you? And I'm actually going to tell that story in a minute, but yes, you know, and that no matter what we're dealing with, we can heal it. And I just have one final story because I think it illuminates what you're speaking to. So in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I developed excruciating pelvic pain to the point where, you know, I lost any libido. And it even got to the point where I had, after all the pain, you know, this burning, stinging pain, it just froze. And, you know, I cannot tell you how many doctors I saw about this. Try this bath, try this supplement, try this diet, you try this, you know, go see a psychiatrist one more time. I got that, you know, and I did all of that. I mean, I wanted my pelvis back. And so there I was in one of my classes, actually, in my Doctor of Ministry journey. And one of the teachers was this sound shaman. And she was also an expert in singing Hildegard music. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I got to find out more about this one. So I went for a session with her. And she has me lie down. I remember it was in the Holiday Inn in Asheville, North Carolina. It's where the class was. And I'm lying on this bed in this hotel room, and she is going to do her healing. And she starts by saying, okay, we're going to invite Mary and Archangel Michael in. And I'm not going, you've got to be kidding me, because, you know, I had been a Waldorf teacher, and, you know, in the Waldorf schools, we have a whole festival connected to this Archangel Michael. And, you know, gathering courage and strength. So I was a huge Archangel Michael fan. And she's like, okay, we're going to bring him in. I'm going, uh-oh, this is for real, you know.
Blast from the past.
But she called Mary in because there was that unconditional, sweet love. But do you know, I walked out of that hotel room with this entire frozenness and pain gone. I had full-blown Kundalini awakening. I mean, you know, the colors were popping, and my sense of smell and taste, it was just like I had come alive like never before.
Wow.
So
how do we get some of that? How do we find our way into a hotel room with Archangel Michael and Mary?
I know.
Sign me up for that.
So it's absolutely true. There are these spiritual beings, and what we're all called to do is find the ones that are meant for us. And that's what I help people do. So
any chance we could get a little sample of how one might do that? If people are listening and going, I want a personal relationship with a 12th century mystic, or, you know, how do you connect and how do you start that process?
Well, I have 3 gems from my practice that I'd like to share today.
Awesome.
And the first one is a meditative reading. And what I'd like you to do, dear viewer, is to just make sure wherever you are, your feet are on the ground. Kristin, I invite you to join me in this. And to really notice how you're sitting in your chair, and to just take a few gentle, deep breaths. And invite your body to relax. Notice if there's any tension anywhere. You know, sometimes I hold tension in my neck and shoulders, and just, you know, invite everything to relax. Just send love to any places where there might be some discomfort, and just notice. It's all okay. And I'm now going to read the lyrics to one of St. Hildegard's songs. And as I read these lyrics, I invite you to just notice which images are speaking to you today. Hildegard wrote countless songs. She was the most prolific composer that we know of in her century. And the majority of these songs were written as praises to Mary. And I feel that this particular song, she also wrote to each and every one of us. And she is going to invite you to become the bough of a tree. And so I invite you now to listen to these words and just notice, is there one image or 2 images from these lyrics that are speaking to your soul today? O viridissima virga, O greenest of boughs, O greenest of boughs, I welcome you. You who came forth in the contractions of the Spirit. You who came forth from the researching of holy ones. When the time came for you to blossom in your branches, I greet you and cheer, because the heat of the sun brought forth sweetly and slowly in you a fragrance like balsam. And then in you bloomed the beautiful flower, which gave fragrance to all the spices that were dry. And they all appeared in total greenness. Therefore the heavens rained dew on the grass, and the whole earth had fun. For your womb brought forth corn, and the birds of heaven made nests in it. Then there was food for humans and great joy for the guests. So therefore, in you, sweet one, no joy is ever lacking. Have no fear. Praise be to the Most High.
Wow. Was your goal to make me cry on this podcast?
You know, Hildegard considers tears the aroma of holy work. So,
I agree with that. If I haven't cried before noon, I'm not working my program. So thank you. Actually, preferably in public. So this is perfect for me. That was incredible.
no.
I can see myself just, I'll figure out what moment we are in this recording, and I'm just going to snip that and play it every day. It's beautiful.
No, I have these lyrics written out on my phone. And of course, she set them to music. And I want to give an example of how one of these images recently came in for me. And, you know, I'm going to be performing this song in September here in Boulder. And so I've been singing it and really just loving it and enjoying it. And this week I was singing the part of, so the skies rain dew on the grass and the whole earth had fun.
That was my favorite.
Snippet, right?
That was my favorite.
I'm out there singing Onde seliterunt rorem supergramen et omnis terra leta facta est. That's the fun part. This robin pops down right in front of me and is hopping along, going for his worms. And I just fell in love with this robin. I felt like I'll never be lonely again because I have a robin to sing and hop around with me.
So, you're like Snow White. You start singing and they just start perching.
So yes, these beautiful lyrics, and we can find, and it differs each time I connect with these lyrics. You know, it's a different. One day I showed up and in this beautiful property behind, all this dew was on the grass and it was sparkling. And so these things show up to nurture us. All right, so now Gem 2. Because, you know, Hildegard, this music came to her. And then she put these words, and these words came to her. And what I've done is I've taken that duo and I've added a third thing and woven that in with the lyrics and the music, and that's movement. And I consider this trio to be a body prayer. And so I'm now going to teach you just a short body prayer. And I'm going to use Hildegard's Kyrie, which was so healing for me in terms of my pelvis and my singing and all of that. And so the first, I'm going to teach it in 4 parts. The first part is just for you to listen to these words. They're Greek words. I'm going to say them slowly. Kyrie eleison. And, you know, in traditional Christianity, it's translated as Lord, have mercy. I like to translate it as creator of life, awaken love within me.
Beautiful.
And now I'd like you to listen to the melody and the words. I'm going to sing it 3 times very slowly. Kiri. So that's what Hildegard gave us. And she's always encouraging me to go further. This is the 21st century. You kind of got to go into new dimensions, like all this technology. You know, and a lot of times I go to her, excuse me, I don't know how to do this technology. And she says, well, I didn't know how to traipse around Germany on horses and on boats in my 70s, speaking to a bunch of clueless men in these freaking cold cathedrals. You know, get over yourself.
Sounds like kind of a taskmaster, actually.
Oh yeah. Oh no, she does not mess around. It's like, go for it. No matter what, go for it. So I'm going to go for it now with you. I'm going to show you these movements.
Now, before we start, is there anyone who shouldn't do this? Are there any contraindications to whatever you're about to do?
Yes. And if you are, for instance, in a wheelchair and you can't stand, after I do the standing version, I'm going to do one in my chair.
Perfect.
So, you know, people who are, you know, challenged and are not feeling like they can stand or do these movements that I'm about to show, I'm going to show a gentler way. It's absolutely, thank you for that question, important to tune into what your body needs. And there are lots of options. So I'm going to show 2 of them today just to give you a flavor. All right. So here's the standing version. And I'm just going to show you the movements, and then I'll put them with the song. So the first one is to just open your palms and move your arms shoulder height. The second movement is to move your arms up to the heavens and look up. Just take in the magnitude, and then to come down. And then the third is to just turn and connect with all of creation. Feel that you are part of the entire universe. And then you put your hands on your heart and soak in a sense of gratitude. And I developed this actually in the last few months, because I wanted a way to manage the fear that has been coming in the midst of this pandemic. And so I really do start my days with this simple practice, because I just say to myself, all right, any fear that I might be holding, I'm going to release it and transform it and fill myself with a sense of wakefulness. That's this first movement, you know, to be awake, to be present in the moment. And then to go up and just know I'm not alone, that there's this entire spiritual world right there, ready. Yeah, invited in. And then I connect with all of creation. And I'm grateful.
So you're going through this sort of mental construct too. You're not just getting on your earbuds and listening to the news, right? You're really bringing your full self to this.
I actually check in once a week and see what's happening in Boulder County where I live in terms of news. And then I just pray, you know, that whatever is happening, you know, be as it's supposed to be. And, but absolutely, this is a real intention. You know, I spoke to that we need to address healing on the mental level as well. And so these are these thoughts that I invite in as I'm moving and connecting with this beautiful and powerful song, you know, and this notion of, yes, I want to awaken love within me. Ask for that.
So are you going to guide us through it with the song now?
I'm going to do it 3 times.
I'm going to stand up so I can benefit.
Absolutely to join me. You know, at this juncture, just listen to what I'm singing. You know, don't worry about trying to follow along. You know, Hildegard's music, it takes a little bit of, I would say, devotion and energy to learn. But I encourage you just gently to also learn this song. And but for now, just join me in the movements and the intention of awakening to love and connecting with the entire universe in a state of awe and then gratitude. So here we go. Beautiful. All right, and yes, some mornings I just, in my garden, or if it's pouring rain, I put it at the window and I connect, you know, with what's around me. And this is, you know, for those mornings where we're just so tired and just overwhelmed or yeah, fragile. And so, and then it's just to simply put the arms up, you know, as much as you can. And then, you know, even if you just look up and connect with the heavens and just receive. This is such a way to receive and really fill our hearts. You know, and then the turning can just be simply with your wrists. You know, you can wrist it. So I always encourage people to move as your body wants to move. And then at the end, the hands go over the heart chakra. And to really, no matter how we do this, to let ourselves at the end really be and to feel on all levels what's happening. It is so sweet.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Are there any things, I know a lot of people will second guess themselves as they try this, and they'll say, is there a way to do it wrong? Is there anything I, could do that would mess it up or get the opposite result?
Well, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that question and how many times I've had to work through that exact thought pattern. Mm-hmm. And the answer is no. Hildegard, yes, she is, do this, a taskmaster, if you will, but she's also this incredibly loving, unconditionally loving abbess. An abbess is a caretaker of souls. And as you might notice, I have my abbess staff. I made this because I think everyone should have one to just kind of hold on to in those days where you just feel like you're going to topple over. And so just the act of doing it, and doing it with a sense of devotion. In other words, just coming from the heart. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Something very powerful about connecting to that organ and that chakra, that space, that intention.
And, part of my life's journey has been, yes, many times healing a broken heart. Mm-hmm. And, each time it heals up, I feel like it's bigger, it's more courageous, it's more open, it's more unconditionally loving. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned in my life is that, as I've healed each and every challenge that's come my way, last year it was shingles, Kristin, and your course was the key. I think that just opened the door and got me on the path. So it is this journey of courage, and it takes sometimes courage to open up to, singing or to moving. And we have so much self-doubt. And I think that comes from our culture too. It's like, there's a certain way to sing, and that's the only, you have to sound like Celine Dion or something. And all of that is part of the journey, and just noticing those thoughts and say, okay, I'm going to do it my way, because that's how I'm going to be helped by this practice.
So I'm hearing kind of a call to radical self-love and self-acceptance.
Oh, yes. And trusting the longings of the soul. And if I may, I have one last gem to share.
Absolutely.
So this is one of Hildegard's illuminations, they're called. She received visions. And so she would see these amazing things, and she actually had them painted them. And this one is what's called the Person in Sapphire Blue. And what I invite you now to do is just, notice how this is a person, and there's the sapphire blue color, and around it is that kind of cord-like golden circle, and then another circle. And what I'm now going to do is just read to you, because she not only painted these beautiful images, she also wrote down the words that she heard when she saw them. And what I'm now going to do is read to you the words that she wrote that accompanies this image. And I invite you to close your eyes. Let these words speak to you. And notice an answer to this question that will bubble up. And the question is, what are you longing? And the key word is here, longing. Really, it's like this yearning, like, what are you longing to create? And so after that, I'm going to just give you a minute or two, and you can always write more on this, but I think it's important to capture it in a minute. The reading will go for just a few minutes, and then take your pen and paper and write down the answer to that question. And you can also answer it in this way. What is your heart yearning to extend? This image has the hands going forward. And so the arms are connected to the heart. What is your heart wanting to extend out into the world. And then just write a few sentences on your paper. What is it that you're longing to create out of the love of your heart? Hildegard writes, I saw a very bright light, and inside it there was a person who was the color of a sapphire. This person and bright light were completely surrounded by a very pleasant fire of reddish color. The very bright light completely surrounded this fire of reddish color. And at the same time, this fire completely surrounded the light. Both the fire and the light surrounded the person, existing as one light with one force of potentiality. And then I heard the living light speak to me. It said, the bright light signifies God, who is without any blemish of illusion, defect, and write the answer to this question. The person signifies the word, who is without blemish of hard-heartedness, ill will, and unfairness. The fire signifies the Holy Spirit, who is without any blemish of dryness, death, and darkness. And so now take a minute or two. What is your soul? What is your heart yearning, longing to create? And I'll just give you a minute or two, knowing you can always write some more. And yes, you can draw it. If you saw an image as I was reading those words, draw that image. All right, I invite you to just bring close to the sentence you're writing or part of your drawing that you're in, and know you can return to this exercise.
That was lovely. Jeannine, you've given us so many tools and things to think about today, and I thank you for that. Before we close, is there anything else that you would like to say from your heart to this audience, or that St. Hildegard of Bingen would like to say to this group of people who might be searching for wholeness and healing and vibrant wellness?
Yes, well, I think there are two things. One from me and one from St. Hildegard. And the one from me is, you know, in those lyrics, it was have fun, right? And so I think every day, if we can search for a way to that, I like to call it this innocent child within us. You know, a lot of us, I know myself for sure, had some really challenging things happen when we were children. I think a lot of times it's out of those experiences that these illnesses show up. And I think it's so important and so helpful and useful, as Hildegard would say, to tune into that innocent, playful sweetness and to express it in our daily lives, no matter how old we are. And the second from St. Hildegard is she talked a lot about virtues. And the queen of virtues is, according to St. Hildegard, moderation. And she brings in this image of, you know, fields that are not plowed and they have useless weeds and, you know, or downpours. And so she describes this and says, this is like a person who lays on themselves nothing but straining and, hard striving. And so she's all about take a breather and find moderation. This way of, yes, you want to weed your field, but you also want to let it rest. And so I love that. The queen of virtues is moderation.
Love it. That surprised me. Well, especially because in my mind, I'm picturing her just sort of, and part of it has to do with you, right? Like you have been preparing your whole life to be of service in this way.
Yes.
And so she knows you're her girl, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
she needs you to get it done. But that beautiful permission to also rest.
Yeah.
And
And for those that really want to get to know her, I always encourage them to read her letters. She wrote amazing letters, and we have them. And there's a little book called The Personal Correspondence of Hildegard of Bingen.
Wow, from the 12th century, we have them before internet even.
Yes.
That's incredible.
These letters, especially in this one book, you see the real woman. And, there's a woman who grieves. There's a woman who struggles. And we see that, yes, she was this amazing, brilliant powerhouse who created abbeys and was financially independent of the men of her day and did, all this healing work, thousands and thousands of people, and was not destroyed. I mean, that's the amazing thing. She lived to be 81. So, but in there we have this incredibly loving, kind soul who can speak to us and be gentle too.
Amazing. And if someone wanted to work with you, is there a way for people who want to get closer to the kinds of work you do and also to Hildegard to take a next step?
Well, I think to start is to go to my website, doctorofthesoul.com. You can read more about me, and you can sign up for a 30-minute kind of chat, and we can talk about what's going on for you and how I might help, and see if we have a good fit. And then we can journey into private sessions. And then I'm so happy to announce that I have created an online course. It's a 5-month journey. We can talk about that and how that course also might help you. And there you'll take a real deep dive into Saint Hildegard's teachings. And what I've done is really distilled, because there's so much, but I've come in with 5 ways to really connect with her, and they're different. Some people are more auditory, some people more visual, some people more kinesthetic. So I really try and work with all the senses. And so we're going to take a very sensual journey in this course, and working with me one-on-one. Yes, we really go for your strong suits, where you are in terms of being able to connect. And we find your distinct way and your distinct spiritual guides, and we go about healing, whatever it is.
Thank you so much. This has been such a treat.
Well, Kristin, you're my gal, so I'm just delighted to know you and be on this path with you, and reach out to this very, very special audience of yours.
Thank you.
And if I may, I'm going to just close off with a brief little song. And as I was healing from my heart surgery, I had my first appointment at the doctor's office. And I was sitting there and a melody came. And it was the melody to Psalm 91. I'm just going to sing the beginning to send us out. Live under the protection of God, all-powerful. Stay in the shadow of God Most High. Then you will say to the Lord, you are my fortress, my place of safety. Kristin, and I love you.
You too.
Viewers.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Healing Grove podcast. If you liked it, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to deepen your experience further, consider grabbing a copy of the Healing Grove Playbook. With journal prompts for this podcast and 41 others, it's the perfect place to record your learnings, keep track of the tools you explore, and reflect on your own experience. Finally, it's important to mention that even though I am a doctor, nothing you hear on this podcast, whether from myself or my guests, constitutes medical advice. Any intervention you try should always be discussed with and supervised by a trusted member of your own healing team. Thanks for listening, and see you next time in the Healing Grove.